Welcome to V is for Victory, a podcast about how small businesses overcome big battles. I'm your host, Jill Miller of Vera Creative, a boutique marketing firm in the Chicagoland area where I'm also a part-time professor of an advertising course. Join me as I talk with entrepreneurs about the challenges they face as well as their strategies for success. Hi everybody, welcome to episode 25 of V is for Victory. I am your host, Jill Miller. And today I'm just going to share a little bit about more about myself so you can get to know me as a host and as just a real human in this world. So I'm actually going to share with you my birthing story of my son. So many of you know that I have a little girl. She's going to be 3 at the end of August. And after a pretty shitty 2020, my husband and I suffered 2 miscarriages. A first procedure I had to go through was a DNC because my body was not getting rid of the fetus, which I know sounds really graphic. And what a way to kick off the show, but just sharing the backstory with you. And so that was a procedure that sucked. That was like right at the height of the pandemic and nobody could come with me. And it was just an awful experience being in the hospital and going through that alone. So that was horrible. And then we got pregnant again like 2 months later. And that actually was an ectopic pregnancy. That is when I guess the embryo, I don't know what you would call it, but it actually gets stuck in your fallopian tube, and it can be dangerous because as it starts to grow there, it can rupture your fallopian tube, which causes internal bleeding. And unfortunately, that is what happened to me. So I went to the ER and had to be admitted through the hospital that way. To have surgery to remove the ruptured fallopian tube. So then I was down to 1 and I was like, oh my gosh, can you even get pregnant? Like, I don't even know about this stuff. So, but you can, as my doctor explained it, there's this whole like symbiotic wave that happens and it just carries over to the other side and the working side of your body, which I don't know, I'm kind of a science nerd. I'm kind of a science geek. I think that's like pretty freaking cool. So 2020, those 2 happened in April and then in July. And then right after my 39th birthday, I'm old folks, to be having babies this young, I'm old. I feel like it anyways. A lot of people will say, no, you're not, but totally am, especially like, I know a lot of my friends and family, like they live in a small town, and in smaller towns, it just seems like people have babies earlier. I mean, people I graduated high school with have like teenagers now, and I have a newborn, but and an almost 3-year-old. But anyways, so that's why I feel old. Right after my 39th birthday in September of 2020, we found out that we were pregnant again, and so that was super exciting. And everything that we hoped and prayed for was a very healthy pregnancy. There was not a lot of drama up until the end. It was like, I went to the doctor every 4 weeks, whatever. They checked me, did a lot of ultrasounds, a lot of like, we do genetic testing because of my age. So we had gone through some ultrasounds and some blood work just to verify that. We did find out the gender because I'm the world's most impatient person. So I had to know the gender, and we were like super stoked that it was a boy, that he was a boy, I should say. Because, having one of each is like really cool. I was a little sad for my daughter Kensington that she wouldn't have like that sister bond, but I think that they're going to be great friends, and, just having somebody to do life with later on, especially as your parents get older, is really helpful in really just kind of a precious thing. So really happy that they're going to have each other. I had to get rid of all the girl stuff that I had and get boy stuff, which was semi-fun, but I realized how cute girl stuff is. So that was like interesting just to go through all of Kensington's baby stuff and have to part with it. And I think I kept a couple things like her receiving blanket from the hospital, her first outfit coming home from the hospital, like just the sentimental things I totally kept. But so we knew we were having a boy. My husband, obviously very excited. I've said this several times on the podcast that his father passed away when he was very young. So he is obviously so excited just to do all the father-son things that he missed out on during his childhood and even into adulthood. So the heart for Kensington, we had a name right away. Knew, like, I loved the name. My husband liked the name. Everyone we told, I think there's only one person that we told that like outwardly said, I don't like it. Everybody else loved it. So we had it picked out for a long time. We bounced around with her middle name, but we ultimately settled on that as well. And with Kyler, our son, it took forever. We were so far apart on names. I remember one day we wrote down like the 5 names that we liked the most. And we said, okay, put them in order from like 1 to 5, with 1 being your favorite and 5 being your least favorite. So I put mine in order and my husband put his in order. And when we compared them, like my 1 was his 5. So my top pick out of the 5 was his last pick out of the 5. And then his top pick out of the 5 was my last pick out of the 5. So it was really hard. And I don't really even know like how we came about. I kind of wanted to stay with K, but I really liked the name Kai, short for Malachi. Nobody liked Malachi. I liked Kai, or just Kai. My husband is actually part Native American, and Kai means ocean, I think, in Native American. And I thought that was just such a cool name, has such cool meaning. But nobody really, or I guess my husband wasn't really too keen on Malachi. I don't even know if we ever talked about just Kai, but now, because his name is Kyler, that's what I call him for short. So I sort of got my way, but I spell it differently, obviously. So anywho, we settled on Kyler. Then we had to figure out a middle name, which was something we also bounced around with, but we finally picked a family name from my husband's side. That's like, it goes back like 5 or 6 generations. Like all the men have this middle name, and it was his dad's. Well, no, it wasn't his dad's first name, because his dad's first name was Tom. But our son's middle name is Thomas, and his dad's name was not Thomas. So, anyways, but in terms of grandpa, great-grandpa, great-great-grandpa, great-great-great-grandpa, they all had middle names Thomas. So that's why we rolled with Thomas as the middle name. So that was like, that was just total contrast from when we had our daughter. We had the name picked out right away. We had several middle names that we both liked that we just needed to kind of pick and decide upon and like which one sounded best. And then with our son, Kyler, it was much more difficult for whatever reason. So, and definitely like still getting mixed reviews. Like a lot of people think we say Tyler. I got a nice bouquet of flowers from one of my husband's customers at work, and it said, "Congratulations on your son, Tyler," which is fine, like whatever, people can't even understand Jill. Like people always think my name is Joe or Jen, or if I really try and pronounce the L's, then they hear Michelle. So simple names don't always go without their issues either. So anyways, we did pick a name. It took like practically the whole entire pregnancy. But it was an easy pregnancy in the sense of like there were no complications. I wasn't in the hospital until the very end, early. But it was a hard pregnancy in the sense of like, everybody says you're like more sick with girls, but this couldn't have been further from the truth. For 14 weeks, I was puking nonstop. And yeah, this is a lot of TMI in this episode. So just FYI, if you want to stop listening, no worries. I know this is not everybody's jam to hear these types of stories, but some people enjoy them. So anyways, lots of puking. I would literally be like reading my daughter a book, trying to put her to bed and like holding back being sick. And then as soon as I was done with the book, just going to the bathroom and being so sick. So that was pretty miserable. I had like just every random weird pregnancy symptom you could think of, like varicose veins in my legs and hip pain and back pain and obviously the nausea and insomnia. And it's amazing how much you forget, though, let me tell you, because during the pregnancy I could have probably rattled off 10 more symptoms that I experienced. And now I'm just like, oh, it wasn't that fun. But I can't remember why. So anyways, I'll fast forward. I want this just to be a quickie episode for you guys to listen to, a little bonus. But so towards the end of the pregnancy, they put you, and again, I don't know if this is because of my age, or I feel like it is sort of because of my age, but at about 4 weeks out from the due date, they put you on this monitor, and it goes like around your stomach, and it measures the baby's heart rate, and it also measures the contractions, if you're having any contractions. And so at about 4 weeks out, my doctor comes in and she's like, whoa, you're having contractions. Did you know that? And I was like, yeah. Because throughout the day I would feel like this kind of like tightening sensation come across my belly. But it wasn't painful enough to like do it. There was a couple times I was trying to walk my daughter to the park and I had to like walk like a little old lady, tiny little steps, kind of hunched over because it hurt. But it passed fairly quickly. But that was 4 weeks out. Then 3 weeks out, they hook you up again, because you go like towards the end of the pregnancy again. When you're older, you're automatically high risk. So they want to see you like all the time. So 3 weeks out, I was like, still contracting, they're getting closer together, but really like nothing to worry about. 2 weeks out, same thing, still contracting and nothing happening in terms of like full, like signs of labor. Water hadn't broke, wasn't dilating, any of that. A week out, it was like, my doctor sent me to the hospital. Like, I didn't even have a choice. She thought 100% sure that this baby was coming. And because my contractions were so strong, they were like 5 minutes apart. It was like crazy weird. Like I was in labor, but again, my body was not taking the next steps to progress towards labor. No dilation, water wasn't broken, everything like that. So that was on a Wednesday. The following Monday, I thought maybe my water had broke, because it, like, you read all this. Well, first of all, what you see on TV and then what actually happens is really not all that true. So what you see on TV is like, you know, woman in the grocery store, water breaks, it's a giant mess, and she runs off to the hospital. But it can it can come out slowly over a period of time. So on Monday, my contractions were really bad. By now they had moved like into my back, and I was having severe back pain. These were not Braxton Hicks people. These were actual contractions. They were registering very strong on the topo scale, I think is what it's called. And so anyways, it was really painful. I was like, oh, it was so hard to do anything. I just remember being like, you want you want to meet your baby, but at the same time, like, the earlier the baby is, I feel like, not the more complications they have, but I just feel like they don't sleep as well and they don't eat as well all the time. At least that's how it was with my daughter. She was born C-section, and when you do a C-section, you do it a week before the due date. So same thing with Kyler, a week before the original due date. So I already knew he was going to be a week early. So I wanted him in there as long as I could, but at the same time, you want the pain to go away and you just want to meet your child and you're just ready at the end. So on Monday, after I had been in the hospital on Wednesday, contractions were bad. Back pain was like horrendous. I thought maybe my water had broke. I hesitated. I wasn't even going to call the doctor because I'm not really like, I don't feel like I'm an alarmist. I feel like I put up with a super lot before I call doctors. But if your water breaks, you risk infection. And I was like, okay, I don't want to risk anything, so I'm just going to call. And actually, I emailed. I didn't even call. I sent them an email. And I was like, yeah, like this happened. And I'm not really sure, but I am in a lot of pain. And, whatever. And so then they like call me right away and they're like, doctor wants you to go back to the hospital. So I go back to the hospital and they hook me back up to the monitor and they check me again and I'm still like 1 centimeter dilated. They did, I want to say, I don't think it was that day. So it was the week before. They did like an ultrasound as well, just to make sure that the baby had enough fluid and that he was doing okay in there. That was the week before. Ugh, and it was horrible because it was like 10 o'clock before I got out of the hospital, 10 o'clock at night, which my bedtime is like 8. So I was so super exhausted. And I remember thinking, this is the week before. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, if they say they have to do surgery and do the C-section tonight, I'm going to be so tired. I had been up since 4:30 in the morning that day and running around all day with my daughter and just doing, life. And then, here it is at 10 o'clock at night and we're just getting the ultrasound results back and determining whether or not we're going to do the C-section or they're going to send me home. And I just remember thinking, I'm so tired. And again, you're torn because you want to meet your baby and, but you want everything to be safe. And it's just surgery is obviously exhausting. That first night in the hospital with a newborn is exhausting. Babies, yes, they sleep a lot, but the nurses come in to check on you every couple hours. So you really don't get sleep. Even if your child is sleeping, they're coming in to take your blood pressure and take your temperature and give you meds and all this stuff. So anywho, that Monday they decided to release me as well. And Monday night, I think, or maybe it was Sunday. I don't even remember. It's all such a blur. But I know that by Monday night, yes, I think it was like Monday that happened during the day. And then Monday night, it was like, I didn't sleep at all. I was up. I was in so much pain. I could not get comfortable. And again, it was like back pain. These contractions were just like so strong in my back. And at about 4:30, I think it was, maybe it's 5 o'clock, I was like, okay, I'm going to try and reposition myself in bed just to see if I can prop myself up with a bunch of pillows or something and make it just better for my back. And I do have I have a neck injury, which is why I get C-sections, because I cannot send my spine into deep flexion. So anyways, I was trying to prop myself up and get myself comfortable. And as I moved to prop myself up, I literally felt like a pop sensation and then a gush, and my water had broke. And so it's 5 a.m, which means if y'all ever hear me talk about my husband, he's the most routine human on planet Earth. And so he was in our basement working out because he gets up at 4:30 every day to work out. So he was downstairs. So I grabbed my phone, I head to the bathroom, I called his phone, and I don't think he answered. So then I just texted him, and usually I don't even know if he keeps his phone by him when he works out. It's usually on the charger in the kitchen. And so I was like, my water broke, and I got on the phone with like the after hours nurse, who was hilarious, by the way. She was like, girl, I would have been at the hospital hours ago. And so that just makes you feel good. She was like, you're tough. And she's like, congratulations, today's the day you meet your baby. And so she was like just so super cool, talking with me and taking my information. And then she has to call the doctor who's on call, which was not my doctor, which was one of the reasons why I was really trying to hold out until the scheduled C-section date, because love my doctor. She's an artist with a knife. My first C-section recovery was, fairly easy in terms of what she did. My body kind of like gets these aches and pains and does these weird things. But in terms of what the doctor did with the incision, healed so fast. The scar was like a practically non-existent, beautiful, beautiful work. And my doctor, because I had gone through the ectopic, and that doctor, definitely not an artist with a scalpel, left a much bigger scar. And my doctor was like, well, I can do some scar revision. So I was like, well, sweet. That's so awesome. So I was really hoping to get my doctor, and I was literally like 24 hours away from getting my doctor. Because this was Tuesday. I was scheduled for a C-section on Wednesday, the next day. So Tuesday, 5 a.m, I'm on the phone with the nurse. My husband's downstairs working out. I'm doing what I got to do first before I go get him, because I didn't know if he had gotten my message. She calls the doctor. Doctor says, I'll meet you at the doctor calls me, says, okay, I'll meet you at the hospital. And so it took me probably like 45 minutes from the time my water broke to the time I was ready to leave the house, because it keeps like, it doesn't just like break and then like fluid comes out once. It keeps gushing out. So I'm like running to the bathroom, trying to maintain the situation. And so while trying to pack the last minute items. So like, I wear contacts, so I have glasses, and so I wear them, at night. They're on my nightstand. So it's like, okay, well, I can't pack those like until I know that I'm going to the hospital. So like those types of last minute things, just trying to pack them. And then the tricky part is it's like, it's 5 a.m. His mom, the plan was for his mom to come and stay with our daughter. It's like, do we wake her up and like bring her with? I mean, at this point, I had no idea. My husband came upstairs. He did get the text. So he came upstairs and he's like, did you call the doctor? And I'm like, yep. And they told me to come in. He goes, okay. And he disappears. So this whole like 45 minutes that I'm trying to maintain the situation and pack my bags, I'm thinking he's calling his mom. He's getting her to our house. He's, jumping in the shower, or he's, downstairs, like packing his stuff, or like just, I assumed he was getting ready. So I come down, my bags are packed, I'm ready to go to the hospital, and he comes up dripping wet from his workout that he had finished during this time. So he isn't ready to go at all. And I'm like, I gotta get to the hospital. The contractions were still coming so hard and strong, and I was in a lot of pain. Fluid is still gushing out of my body. I know, again, TMI. but it is kind of comical if you think about it. And he's just standing there like, okay, well, I'm going to go shower. Like, he's got all this time in the world. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll drive myself to the hospital. And he's like, well, we could wake up Kensington and I could drive you and just drop you off and then come back home and then shower and get my stuff together and have my mom come and then come to the hospital. And I'm just like, and by the time all that happens, you may miss the birth of your son. Like, we don't know how fast this is going to progress. because there was still a chance that I could have tried to do natural labor. It was all just kind of like, okay, how much, and you never know. I mean, you never know how much pushing you're going to have to endure, and you never know how fast and how long labor is going to be. But, my doctor was like, if you come in and you're like 8 centimeters dilated and things are ready to go, we might be willing to try it. But otherwise, my doctor was not even really willing to try it, just because, again, neck injury, previous surgeries in which your uterus gets cut into, which just makes it more vulnerable to rupturing during birth. So anyways, I literally was like, I'm okay, like, what do I do? I need a towel. I had to put a towel down in my car because I didn't want to make a big mess in my car. So we have a bin of towels, but I actually think I grabbed one out of my husband's car because he had a towel in his car because he sits on one when he goes running outside after work. And so I think I grabbed that towel and I put it down in my car and I drove myself to the hospital. And I called my mom on the way and I'm like, okay, Mom, my water broke. My contractions are really painful. You got to talk to me and get me to the hospital because I'm driving myself. And so here I am, like, driving at 5 in the morning. No, it was like 5:45 in the morning to the hospital, which is maybe like a 10-minute drive. It's not that far. But it was just kind of like, looking back on it, it was like a little bit dramatic and a little bit comical. Walking from my car into the hospital was probably the worst moment of my life. No, it wasn't the worst moment of my life, but it was the worst moment of the pregnancy because it was just so hard to walk. Things are still gushing. Every time I'm like gush comes out, I like jerk my body because I'm like, oh my gosh, because it feels like you're peeing your pants. But obviously I was prepared, so I wasn't making a mess. I got behind like the super slowest car in the history of cars. That was another thing. Oh my gosh, I was so close to getting to the hospital and then this car is just like poking along. And I was like, and I passed a sheriff and I thought about like flagging him down and being like, can you put your lights on and I'll just follow you, or you follow me or something, and can I get an escort here so I can get to the hospital faster? But I was like, no, don't be dramatic. But that would have been an even more fun story to tell. But yeah, so I passed the sheriff, didn't do anything, got behind the slow car, passed him as soon as it opened up into 2 lanes, which is basically the hospital parking lot, but still. Park my car, hobble in, I go back. By now, the people at the front, I think they recognize me because I had been there so many times. And they get me admitted, and the doctor gets there, and literally about 3 or 4 minutes before I get out, because you walk into the OR, okay? You walk into the OR, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so you walk into the OR, about 3 or 4 minutes before I walk into the OR, my husband shows up. They literally throw scrubs at him and tell him to go change. So he cut it about as close as you possibly could. He had to wait for his mom to get to our house so she could watch our daughter. We also had to wait until our dog boarding place opened. They didn't open until I think 7 or something like that. And we wanted to drop off our crazy puppy at the boarding place so that his mother-in-law didn't have to deal with him for however many days we were going to be in the hospital, which was also an unknown. I mean, we hoped only the 2 because that's typical after a C-section or a surgery, but and that's what it ended up being. But so a few minutes before I walk into the OR, he does arrive, and the anesthesiologist, really like funny, laid back, cool guy, blasting music in the OR. And so like when they started the surgery, Sting, I send an SOS to the world. That song was on, and I was joking with everybody in the OR, like, I don't think this is the best song for my son to be born to. Like, this is good. Like, can we wait a second, And because they were actually doing like scar revision, the surgery took longer. And it was I was like, oh, what does that smell? You could smell like burning skin. It was so disgusting. So the surgery did take a little bit longer. Kyler ended up being born to a song by The Cult, which is probably maybe not the best sign ever. And also sad because I'm like a lyrical gangster. Literally, I know a lot of music. And I didn't know this Cult song. Don't really know The Cult at all, actually. But one of my surgeons, I had a team of 2 surgeons. One of my surgeons was like, oh, The Cult. And that's what he ended up being born to. So that's kind of funny. But this time around, it was a little different. My husband got to go on the other side. They put like a screen up. Usually they don't want people to see. Like, maybe if you were really adamant about it, they would. But, because they don't need like 2 patients in the OR. They don't need dads passing out because they can see like, surgery or, like wide open on the table. I don't know. I read that they take out part of your like intestines and stuff to get to the baby, but I don't really know if any of that is true. But anyways, my husband did get to go on the other side of the like screen that they put up while they were cleaning off baby and weighing baby and measuring baby. And he did get to cut the umbilical cord, and he got to use the little suction, like squeezy suction thing, and like suck all the stuff out of his mouth, like fluids or whatever, out of his mouth or his nose or whatever it is. Babies come out all gooey and ooey and gooey. And so he got to be like a big part of that. And that was really, really super cool. And then like, what else? I don't think like, and then then the baby's here, and it's just so crazy because he looks a lot like my daughter did when she was a baby. But he sleeps and eats like a champ, way better. Right now he's getting up at like only 1 time during the night, and we are so thankful and so blessed for that. We know, that's not always typical. It certainly wasn't with our daughter. But yeah, I think in the last episode 24, he was getting fussy. I don't know if that got edited out or not, because it hasn't been to the edit room yet, but, probably not edited out. And literally, like, I had to feed the baby during the call. I had to, he spit up all over me while I was recording that podcast. So yeah, just a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes of Kyler's birth. And now when I have to record a and he's hanging out with mom, it's never a dull moment, that's for sure. So that is my birthing story. Pretty sure we're done having kids. 2 is a lot these days. I like jokingly tell everyone we have to be done because we're out of bedrooms in our house. It's a 4-bedroom house, but one of the bedrooms is a guest room and an office, and obviously I can't give up my office, but it's also on the lower level, so would hate to have a kid like that far away. So that is the story, Morning Glory. I think it was just enough adventure, you don't really want any more drama than that. But it makes for a good story and a good laugh, and all is well that ends well. So I hope you enjoyed that little story, just getting to know me and my family a little bit more. And again, like I said, what happens behind the scenes that listeners probably don't even realize is going on. It's just kind of fun. And I think I'm going to do a blog as well about that last episode that I recorded with Sean Tyler, and just, talk about what was happening, because it is kind of funny, and it's just fun. Like, even for me to have these moments and these memories documented, because I know over time you forget so much. My husband doesn't even remember my daughter not sleeping well through the night. And I'm like, how can you not remember this? We were up all the time. But again, like I said, you kind of forget. You forget anything that is definitely negative, and you just kind of focus in on those good special moments, and it's good. It's all good, and that's what we want, and that's what we need to focus in on, I think. So anyways, thanks y'all for tuning in. Again, please subscribe, share, tag, post, review. Like I said, I'm going to be turning 40 this year. I want to do something super fun for my 40th. If you have been on a recent vacation somewhere and you think that I need to go there, drop that in the comments, because we're thinking of maybe getting away for 4 or 5 days, but we're not entirely sure on it. But yeah, so please just continue to interact with the brand and with the podcast. And thank you so much for everyone who listens to what is now mostly a monthly show. I appreciate you. Remember, if you share the podcast and you tag @Vera Creative on Facebook or Instagram, you're automatically entered to win free coffee. I would just send you a gift card in your email for a free coffee. So next cup of joe on me for sharing the podcast, any episode. Just make sure that you are following my page, otherwise I won't see the tag. But again, thanks everybody, and we'll be back next episode 26. Super exciting guest. Can't wait for y'all to hear what he has to say.